Hi everyone, it's my huge pleasure today to be sitting, albeit at a distance, with my good friend and magnificent composer, Philip Sparke. Phil, thanks for joining me for this chat.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Well, it's a very special occasion because, as a lot of people know, certainly euphonium players know, you've just completed your new Euphonium Concerto, Concerto No.4, Omaggio, and we've just got news now of the world premiere. We've talked about it the last couple of days. So I thought musicians would be really interested to hear from you about this and about your amazing output for euphonium and baritone in particular. You've been writing the euphonium a very long time, really. Fantasy for Euphonium was probably your first solo piece, is that right? Way back?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
1978, I think.
78, I think.
And you were just leaving the Royal College then? As a graduate?
Oh no, I'd left. I was working at R. Smith's at that point, and they asked me to write a solo for a recording they were doing with Yorkshire Imperial Metals. Ian Craddock, was it?
Yeah. That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And that piece is still being played. It was played at the RNCM Brass Band Festival about 2 weeks ago.
Was it really? I didn't know that.
Dan Thomas played it with Black Dyke, yeah. So,
good Lord.
So we've come a long way since 1978. So the Euphonium Concerto No.4, if I'm right in thinking, I think, Phil, that this is the second concerto that you wrote for euphonium that was actually originally composed for euphonium.
You're not wrong, yes. The first two were both from other sources. The first one was a euphonium version of a horn concerto I did for River City Brass Band.
Yeah.
And the second one was from a clarinet concerto I did for Lyndon Merrick.
Yes. I remember very well. I guess it was like 1994. I said, Philip, you know, it's about time you wrote a euphonium concerto. And your expression stayed in my mind. He said I think I just have.
Fine. Okay.
So originally for French horn, and you said, look, you've got to edit all the Mozart bits out of the last movement.
Oh, that's right. Yes, it's quite right. Yes.
Yeah. And so the premiere of that was with Breeze Brass Band.
Correct. Absolutely.
In Osaka, and you were there for that.
Yeah.
I remember because I was rehearsing it, and you said, Steve, I think you've got some wrong notes. Ba-da-da-da-dee, ba-da, ba-da. And I'd been playing a wrong note in rehearsals, and you very kindly corrected. So that was one of the beautiful memories of that. And of course, I recorded that on the Euphony CD with the RNCM Brass Band.
Yeah.
With Howard Snell conducting, with you producing it.
I remember that in Whitworth Hall, that one, wasn't it? Or
Whitworth Hall in Manchester, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we've had many collaborations, of course, with polyphonic and studio music for many years. With the World of the Euphonium series. And I've just noticed that Volume 5, the last one, was actually way back in 2006. So my time has really flown since we did those.
Wow, yes, absolutely.
So the first concerto you wrote for euphonium has been a wow ever since. I mean, beautiful music, and especially the second movement, the lento, that has really touched people's hearts, and not easy to play because it's very sustained, but extraordinarily beautiful music. Do you remember the inspiration for that movement at all, or it just came out?
You know, I'm getting to the age where I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I thought this when you were going to ask me a bit more about the new concerto. There's a very strange thing happens when I'm writing, is when I've finished a piece and started the next piece, the previous piece almost disappears from my mind, to the point sometimes where I couldn't even sing any of it to you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's very, I don't know what that is, whether it's normal, strange, or beneficial, or what, but it's...
Everyone else is singing it except you.
yeah. I suppose it's about tuning the mind into the new piece. You have to start again from fresh and have different parameters depending what the piece is for. But it just disappears. It's very strange. And I had to play through the new concerto yesterday just to remind myself about it. It's bizarre.
I've been working on it every day for the last few weeks, especially as now not only do we have a first performance, but we have a first recording, and we'll talk about that coming up. So it's extremely exciting. We collaborated, of course, on the Diamond Concerto, and that was with a wind orchestra in the south of Germany. That was in the area where they work a lot with semi-precious stones and diamonds and things, and so your idea of the Diamond Concerto was unbelievably brilliant and great music. People still really love that concerto.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Omaggio, it came to me well over about a year and a half ago now, that I was approaching a certain anniversary that begins with the number 6. That I would love to commission a work from you. And then, as many people know, my father passed away January 19th, 2021. And the two things together made for the possibility of this commission to remember my father and what a great man he was, celebrate the 60th anniversary. And the work that you've produced is just quite extraordinary, Philip.
Well, that's kind of you say. Thank you.
So the process, did you one movement at a time, or do you kind of work with a couple of movements on the go? What's the process?
In this case, and in 99% of my pieces, I'd start at the first bar and work through. And I think I was very lucky hitting upon the first bar that I hit upon. For whatever reason, it became I don't know whether you've traced it all through, but that little motive that starts at the top of the band at the beginning works all the way through the concerto.
It does.
To sort of give it some sort of unity. And I often describe it as the compositional process as a journey, like a journey in a car. And if you make the right turn, your first turn, the right turn, then it makes it much easier for you. If you make a wrong turn at the beginning, then it can make things difficult. So I think I was very lucky to chance upon that first bar. And in fact, I was thinking of your sound all the way through it, because as you said, we worked together a lot. And the beginning, you said fantasy was a long time ago. The beginning owes a little bit to fantasy, I think, in terms of mood and style.
Yes.
And I wasn't deliberately trying to sort of evoke that, but having heard you play that piece and having that sound in the mind was an inspiration for the beginning of it.
So the Diamond Concerto begins, I suppose, in a similar kind of groove. In Omaggio, it's very much extended and developed before we suddenly go into double time. And so we've got like an evolution of that music before we get to hit lots of fast notes. It really it's an exhaustive, prelude that really sets up everything we're going to do after that.
That's right. And one of the things I was thinking about, and you'd think, having reached my age and having been writing for 50 years, I'd know how this thing worked. But I honestly have no clue what's actually going on sort of in the background.
It's called,
except for the fact that I know
it's called genius, Phil.
No, I would never use that. I'd never use that.
No, others will, but
well, I don't mind that. What amazes me, and it amazed me playing through the piece yesterday. I'm not trying to be immodest about this at all, because I don't understand the process. Is that on a day-to-day basis, I'm dealing with maybe one bar or two bars. Sometimes I'll spend a whole day on one bar, particularly, funnily enough, on unaccompanied parts. I find that very difficult because you're not constrained by anything. There's no harmony to constrain you. So the possibilities are endless, and finding a convincing line or melody or thought when it's unaccompanied, it takes a long time. So I'm spending my working day working on a very, very small piece of whatever piece it is. And having to bear in mind that small piece has to slot into, in this case, quite a large jigsaw,
yes,
without the picture being spoilt, and I really do not understand that process. I don't, except for the fact that I will over and over and over again play the piece through on the computer to make sure it's flowing the way I'd like it to.
So when you're working on a bar or two bars for exhaustively, is there like a green light comes on in your head to say that's okay, or do you?
Yes, and I'll go back to it the next day, and it's not going to be okay. So.
Oh, I see.
So all possibilities are there for that.
You see, when we hear your music, I mean, a lot of people watching this video will know many of your brass band compositions. That everyone will have their favorite, and wind orchestral musicians around the world. It always seems so very natural. Your music flows. It's always beautifully scored. The melodies are yours, yet they're still original. Yet they still create, I feel like, an immediate reaction with the listener. But of course it doesn't come like you're describing. It comes as a result of hard graft in many instances. But
yes, it is, and again that's I'll repeat myself. That's part of the process I really don't understand, is how you can make something big out of such little efforts. What little daily efforts can produce something so big. And of course I've got no guarantee that because the musical flow or the musical picture or the development makes sense to me, that it would make sense to anybody else. I've got no way of judging that, and I assume there are sort of innate natural laws of how music works that are common to most people's understanding, but I don't know that. And I can say, well, this cadenza is now the right length, but somebody else might say that it could be longer or it could be shorter. And
of course, but it's your music. It's your sense of form and how you want the melodies to work. The slow movement in this again is another absolute classic. I've got an MP3 file which you sent me, which I'm going to be playing quietly under this part of our chat. But that melody in the second movement, I mean, where does that beautiful thing come from? Does it really come one note at a time, or do you wake up one morning? Is that really like breaking rocks? Because it sounds to me like it's just something that's floated down from heaven,
Actually, I can remember that the first two bars came straight away.
Great.
Once I'd reached the key I wanted to be in,
yes,
I knew I wanted to be in E flat for that part. It came, and I imagine after that I was tinkering with the following bars to make it flow and to make it sort of have some sort of sense. But that again, it's luck really, and. I write lots of stuff which I just discard, and I could have just discarded that, thinking that's not going to go anywhere. But luckily, I thought I'll keep that for the moment and see what happens, and
yes.
It seemed to work out.
And it's almost got with the intervals you've got. It's almost kind of Elgarian in a few places.
Interesting you could say that, and not because I mean Elgar is a huge musical hero of mine, but in terms of concertos, I have this. I compare every concerto I hear to the cello concerto.
Wow, really interesting.
Not in terms of the actual music, but in terms of the role the soloist plays compared to the accompaniment. And in the Elgar, I think the cello is playing in nearly every bar. It's center stage, I think 97% of the time, which you can't, of course, do with a wind instrument so easily. You need to have your. You'll be pleased to hear. You need to have your rest. But that's one thing that concerns me all the time is, and I think I asked you about a couple of sections of this piece whether you wanted to be playing there or not.
Yeah.
Is to. From a dramatic point of view, for a live concert, how much do I want Steven to be playing, and how much do I want him to be standing there, smiling at the audience? Because I think that's an enormously important part of the drama of the piece.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is that theme beautiful, but then it's developed in a really rhapsodic way, and that's a feature of your music, really, for me, in the last 10 or 15 years, that you don't just present something, it undergoes a series of transformations before it finally comes to a rest.
That is yes, that is, I think, I could call that maturity in a way. And when I sometimes give talks about composing, I ask people if they know another meaning of the word compose, and in fact it comes from the printing world. A compositor or composer is someone who actually takes the little bits, when they used to have loose type, takes the bits of type and puts them into a row to make a sentence. And that's what I feel the composer does. Again, working on these little one day bars or 1 day 8-bar pages, is to get these into an order that makes fluent musical sense, at least to me as a composer.
Yeah.
And the idea of a piece constantly developing is one way, I mean, I think the way of making a piece own the time that it takes to play. Yes. So that you're not going back and repeating a melody necessarily, because that is in fact taking the audience in a retrograde step.
Yes.
So to make it, to develop it, and try not to repeat yourself too much, but obviously keep some sort of unity of material. I think that's a composing skill that I've tried to master over the last 150 years.
And when euphonium players see the sheet music to the third movement, they'll have never seen a slow movement that has so much black notes in it.
Right.
Because it really becomes rhapsodic, but it feels so natural. But it's really a beautiful evolution of something that started so incredibly simply with that opening motive. And so I suppose the only other brief that I suggested to you, Phil, when I asked you to write the concerto was this special tribute to my father, Rex. One of his favorite hymn tunes was the tune Helmsley, Charles Wesley inspired, middle of the 18th century. And it's a tune that Eric Ball uses with amazing effect at the last section of Kingdom Triumphant. And I was wondering how on earth you would be able to incorporate this hymn tune, whether it would be in the second movement, and you've skillfully introduced it in the last movement in conjunction with the other, if you like, almost like a hunting theme.
Yes. Yeah.
And suddenly this hymn tune comes, and it's a quite staggering moment. And when people hear this in the concerto, I think it'll be a highlight. I sent it, the electronic version, I sent it to my family to have a listen, and almost without exception, they said at that moment when that tune comes in, it floods of tears, because all of a sudden is the immediate association with my father. So, yes, how on earth did that happen, Phil? I was just...
Well, all I can say is you're very lucky, because having explained that when I'm writing, I always start with bar one and work through. It's because the couple of times where I've had, and I had it, I think in the Year of the Dragon I had it, where I've got an idea, which is obviously not the beginning of a movement, it's the middle of a movement, and I need to write something in front of it. I've never ever managed to do it. I don't know why that is. I suppose I'm maybe trying to get to it too patiently or something, but I've never managed to do that. So writing this concerto and knowing at some point I've got to introduce this marvellous tune.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. What is it about that tune that's so marvellous? It's so simple.
Yes.
I mean, what are we supposed to do with that?
I think there's I think there's a certain robustness in the theme. And of course, for a lot of people, for Salvation Army people like myself, it conjures up, memories of Sunday evening services. There's lots of historic things there, and not in my father, but it is a much loved theme, and it's
it's not very interesting harmonically. It's not very interesting melodically. I mean, in terms of, it's just plain and simple, but it's one of the most noble hymn tunes I know. It's just remarkable.
And in a couple of places, both times where the tune comes in, you've introduced some extraordinary, beautifully written tuba parts that just give it such a feeling of grandeur.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes, I'll add this little bit now to our chat so people can hear that, but it's magnificent. I can't wait to hear the bass section of the Italian brass band enjoy that moment.
Yes, I did brass band. It's very much a brass band part, that, and I'll be interested in how I can make that work with the concert band when I do it. But yes, I'm looking forward to hearing that when you get a chance to do it with the Brickhouse. That's going to sound okay.
The premiere is going to be accompanied by the Italian brass band with Filippo Cangiamilla, and it's going to be on Sunday, March the 20th, not long now, at the Auditorium del Fornaci, which is very close to the Vatican City in the center of Rome.
That's magnificent. It's a lovely brass band.
It's a lovely brass band, and they're excited to be part of this historic event as well. So I know they're going to work very hard. And then the recording has just been finalized. I'm really thrilled about. World of Brass are going to be behind this, and it's going to be with the great Brighouse and Rastrick Brass Band, conductor Russell Gray, and can't wait. Russell's got the score and he's listened and he's excited. So
I can't imagine anyone better to do that. It's a Russell piece, isn't it, in a way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely is, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be quite a few other new pieces on that, and there'll be press releases. So that recording is going to be the 14th and 15th of May. So, of course, fingers crossed by the end of the summer, maybe September, definitely by October, that recording will be out. So that's great. So, yeah, this is hopefully not our last collaboration, Phil, but I've certainly enjoyed immensely this. If we think back to the other memorable times where we worked together, I suppose one for me was when you came to the States, where we worked with the Michigan State Wind Orchestra.
Yes. 92,
of course, with our great dearly missed friend Mike Moore at the controls. It was quite a team we had there, and so we still remember the late night sessions that we had with the Michigan State Wind Orchestra. We didn't start till 10 p.m. at night, if you remember.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
We did, I think, 3 nights on the trot, 10 p.m. until around 1:30 a.m., followed by a quick trip to Denny's restaurant in the middle of the night.
And then playing baseball during the day, I think.
Well, the brass band of Battle Creek was on during the day, and we did.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, and we did a concert one morning at the high school, just the morning after one of the late night sessions. So much fun. And you worked with the British Tuba Quartet on all our recordings as well. So it seems such a long time ago now, but of course it's great that we still have the recordings to enjoy on the way.
Yeah.
So future projects, Phil, what have you got coming up? You must have some big wind band scores on the way at the moment.
Yes, I've got a few. I'm doing a lower section brass band test piece at the moment for not as a test piece, but it's going to be a test piece for a youth band in Switzerland, and I'm really enjoying that. I love writing for the lower section bands. It gives me a chance to use part of the brain that I don't normally use, having to devise things that are interesting but not 1,000 notes a minute and huge sounds and that sort of thing. So it's really good fun. Well, and then yes, a few more wind band pieces for the rest of the year.
Great. I mean, I was working through a list the last couple of days, as you know, of all your output for euphonium and baritone, and of course a lot of people know this, some don't. A massive output for less than professional standard players. You know, the starter, skillful, super studies books, amazing educational resource for us. Starter solos, skillful solos, super solos, starter, skillful, super duets that give young players and the not so young really chance to play good music, you know, well constructed music that suits the instrument. So yeah, so if people don't know that, and the classical solos, intermediate classical solos, and Christmas arrangements for euphonium with CDs, so absolutely, it's. But of course, the works that you'll be known for, we ask most euphonium players which is their favorite solo. Most of them will still say pantomime.
Yeah. Yes, so.
You must see the sales of pantomime. It must be extraordinary still.
It's remarkable, particularly the piano version.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's just incredible seeing it. It's now what,
1987, wasn't it? It came out
86, 87, yes.
Yes.
35 years ago that I wrote it.
Yeah, but it stands the test of time, absolutely. Along with Party Piece, Harlequin, Scaramouche, Legend of Spirit Island. That's not one that I've done, but that's on our list. Variants on an Old English hymn. And then, of course, nearly every euphonium player in the world has played Song for Ina. Is it Ina or Ina?
Ina.
Okay, well, I'll have to correct myself.
Let's go back over the last 40 years.
Go back and apologise to everyone. And of course, that beautiful piece from Hymn of the Highlands, The Summer Isles. That's a piece I recorded with the military band from Belgium, the Belgium Air Force Band, on the Pulse CD. And the reaction of the musicians at the end of that was really quite amazing to see. They were genuinely touched by the beauty.
Well, in a large part of the way you played it, Steve, it's a fantastic performance.
Thank you. And of course, Obard with the 8 bars of top C written at the end.
Is it really? I mean, I haven't seen that piece for. Oh yes, 8 bars.
And then the band basically carry on. I've heard a lot of players do it in workshop, and they sound great until the last note. And then it's like 3 seconds and then falling off it. So it's a great test. And the number of times I've played 2-part Invention with Misa, but of course it was written for Bob and Nick Childs, wasn't it, originally?
Correct, that's right, yes, absolutely.
In the heydays of when they were touring everywhere in the 1980s, early 90s. And Euphonism, which is another great duet, which I hope to play again this year. And then a piece that I didn't know about, but you've told me, the Gemini Concerto. Can you tell me about that?
It was written for Shoichiro Hokusano, and I think a French trumpet player who lives and works in Japan. They wanted a double concerto, and I'm getting to the stage in life where something with a little bit of a twist is quite interesting. It's rather than go over sort of pieces I've done before. So it's quite a nice challenge, and we recently, a couple of years ago, recorded it with the central band of the RAF, and it came over well. And I've done a brass band version as well.
Great. I'm gonna check that out. I didn't know.
It's not published yet, but obviously, if you want to have a look, you can.
Yeah. Well, Phil, thank you so much for our chat today. There will be so many musicians, and especially, I'm guessing, euphonium players who've played your music for decades, and in some cases maybe they're just learning their first Philip Sparke solo, but perhaps have never met you, never heard you speak, and this will be a big occasion for them. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Oh, not at all. It's been a real pleasure.
And I can't say again how much I appreciate the new concerto. It is, for me, the most beautiful work for euphonium that I've ever played.
Oh, that's very sweet. Very sweet.
I've played a lot.
So I've heard. Yes.
Yes. So
well, that's
there will be a piano accompaniment version coming in due course, I guess, won't there?
Yes, it's being worked on at the moment, but that takes quite a lot of time, especially with a piece of that length. Once I've got a friend who's a pianist doing it for me, and then I've got a lot of simplifying and rationalizing of that to do before it's available. But there will be, yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Phil, and I hope you enjoy. Well, I'll certainly get a recording of the premiere to you, probably a video, and then of course the CD later in the year. But thanks for all you do for brass players everywhere, for musicians everywhere. They may not get the chance to see you face to face, but you know that everybody loves your music so much. So
that's really kind, Steve. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it. Thanks.
Absolute pleasure.